If your editing feels a little bit all over the place right now, that is completely normal. Your style isn't meant to stay the same forever. In fact, it's meant to shift with you based on what you're drawn to, how you shoot, and especially how you edit. And so in today's video, I want to walk you through how I am evolving my editing style, what I've changed inside of Lightroom, and how you can use editing to shape your style moving forward. And guys, if you're new here, my name is Matty. I am a travel and hospitality photographer, and I run a free weekly newsletter called Captured. It goes out every Saturday. It's free, and people tell me it's their favorite email of the week. So if you want to go check it out, the link is below. All right, so let's talk about evolving your editing style. Back in the day, I was editing for vibrance and pop. I used to pump the exposure, lift the shadows. My saturation was boosted, especially in the oranges and the blues. It was a punchy, clean, and vibrant look, and it made a lot of sense to me at the time. See, that look and those images that I was creating reflected the lifestyle and the travel that I was doing. It was also the kind of photos that I was getting the most recognition for and questions about online. And so at the time, I leaned into it because I loved it, and I even made YouTube tutorials here showing you how to edit just like this. But eventually, after some time and some years of shooting, I stopped feeling aligned with this kind of work. And not because I thought it was wrong, it's just in time, I started chasing something a little bit different. And I think that's a big part artists don't talk about when it comes to your style and evolving as a photographer. See, our styles evolve because so do we. And so I don't think we need to box ourselves in just because we're looking to create something new. And so if right now your work feels a little bit off just how I did, it might not be because your work is bad, it might just be because you've grown and your edits haven't really caught up yet. To show you exactly what I'm talking about, here is a photo I took on a recent trip in Spain. On the left is how I would have edited this photo a couple of years ago. And on the right is how I approached it just this month. It's the same photo in the same lighting with the same equipment, but it's just a different mindset and a different intention when it came to the editing side. And this shift in the editing style I was creating came from paying attention to how I wanted my work to start looking and the feeling that I wanted my images to have. And again, this isn't about better or worse, it's just about being honest with yourself in your current position right now. And so if this is sounding like you right now, here's how I would go about evolving your editing style with purpose, and then we'll jump into Lightroom so you can see exactly how it's looking like for me. So what you're gonna wanna do first is start by collecting and curating the type of images that you love and want to start creating one day. I've dropped a link below to an app called Milanote, which you can sign up for free, and this is like your personal mood boarding tool. When you connect your Milanote to Google Chrome, you can instantly start collecting and mood boarding images when you're on Instagram on your desktop. So just drag and drop about 10 to 20 photos that really catch your eye and look like the editing style you want to start creating. From there is going to be your job to start looking for patterns. Figuring out what these 10 to 20 images are as a collective is going to be your new baseline. And so now you're gonna go into Lightroom and create a different catalog and start importing images from your old editing style. Try not to use your old presets or go out and buy new ones right now. Just focus on editing these shots to start looking like the ones in the mood board you just created. I guarantee you at first they will not look just like those photos in the mood board because, as we know, style is made up of so many things other than just editing. Things like cameras, lighting, experience, all of these things matter, but just try your best to match them up to the mood board. After some work and some tweaking, you're gonna eventually start to see a common thread come up in this new style you wanna create. I find that when you're constantly consuming photography online and you're seeing what could be out there and what you could do, it can get a little bit overwhelming. So having a mood board and a baseline that you start from is going to set you up to start moving in the right direction. Now you can only edit so much of your old work with a new eye in mind. So the next step you're going to do is you have to go out and shoot some new content. The real shift in your work will happen when you are shooting with your editing style in mind. For me, that happened when I decided I wanted warm, richer, more luxurious images, that I started looking for different types of lighting and shooting at different times in the day. Essentially, what we're doing with the mood board and editing our old images is setting ourselves up now to get a much better idea of how we need to approach our photography, which will then lead to how we approach our editing. Also guys, before we go on, I wanted to give a quick shout out to all of the new students who signed up to my course, Capture to Keep. If you don't know, I run a beginner photography course, and over the last month, we've had quite a few new people join the community. And so if you are someone who's still figuring out how to shoot, or you'd like to improve your editing like we are talking about today, be sure to go check out Capture to Keep. I'm not gonna go too much into it. The reviews can speak for themselves, but the link is down below. And so now that we've talked about how you can evolve your editing with purpose, let me show you exactly how this is looking in Lightroom for me. All right, here's a recent example I think clearly shows the shift I am talking about. When we look at these two images side by side, you can see on the left is an image I've edited with an old preset from a few years ago. And on the right, you can see how I've edited this photo this month. When we compare the two images side by side, you can see that there are quite a few major differences: the exposure, the colors, and the overall mood of the shot. When we look at the image on the right-hand side, we can see exactly where I want my photography editing style to go, and on the right, you can see exactly where it was. When we jump into the develop module of this older edited shot, you can see that the exposure is raised quite significantly. There wasn't a whole lot of thought behind it, but I figured that if an image was vibrant, saturated, punchy looking, that it would get attention and it would look a lot better. And so with that, I raised the exposure, I raised the shadows a lot more, and I also raised the blacks. And so although I wanted to increase this vibrant look that people were seeing, what I was in fact doing was that I was raising all of the shadows and all of the lighting in the image, removing any chance of this shot looking cinematic. By raising the shadows, you can see in the buildings and on the rocks here that I'm losing a lot of detail. I didn't know this is what I was doing at the time, but it was having a massive effect on the overall mood of the shots. If we scroll down a little bit further, you can also see that I've pushed the vibrance and the saturation a whole lot further. If I take them away, you can see that this image still is quite flat, purely because of the raised exposure blacks and shadows. But in a way to combat this, I was raising the vibrance and the saturation to bring back some life into my images. It wasn't a very thoughtful or intentional approach to editing, and it was just an attempt to make my images look a whole lot better online. The same goes for when we scroll down to the HSL sliders. You can see that I've punched the blues and the aquas up a whole lot. Again, the idea here was to enhance the image's vibrance. I wanted the sky to look really beautiful and the sea to look really blue, and so the only way I was going about that was by raising these sliders. And finally, to add to this issue, I was raising the sharpness quite a lot, so digitally enhancing my image to make it a lot more punchy and a lot more detailed. Now, when we jump into the develop module of the newly edited photo, you can clearly see a massive difference in the overall feeling of the shot. You can see that the exposure has been lowered pretty much the exact same as I had raised it previously. And along with that, the contrast has been dropped. So before, when I was trying to soften my images, I was raising exposure, raising the blacks, and dropping the highlights. But now by dropping the contrast, I can keep the shadows the same. And then when we zoom in on the buildings, you can still see that detail hasn't been removed. So by keeping the shadows at 0 and dropping the contrast, I can soften up my image while maintaining some of that cinematic look. And when we scroll down to the HSL sliders, you can clearly see that I've dropped the blue saturation. Before, in the older looking shot, like I said, I wanted the sky and the sea to really pop out. So by now dropping the blue saturation down, you can clearly see the sky feels a lot more natural and a lot more muted. So overall, when you look at these two images side by side, you can clearly see that the exposure, the contrast, the vibrance and saturation sliders have played a massive difference in how this photo feels. Here's another example of how my editing style is shifting. This time we're in a cafe. The old edit on the left is clean, bright, and pretty flat. I've lifted the shadows to keep all the detail. But that's kind of the issue. See, everything's treated equally in this image. We can see the background is exposed, the foreground and the midground. There's no depth and there's no real light shaping going on. This edit on the right, you can see, is a whole lot darker. I've brought down the exposure, I've dropped the highlights quite significantly. Although I've raised the blacks, that's purely because this shot was slightly underexposed. But overall, I'm not trying to bring back any of that detail like I was before using the shadows. And this isn't an accident. This is actually quite intentional. I'm letting the contrast in this image tell the story and invite the viewer in, whereas in the original photo, I was just trying to edit away all of the mistakes and make everything look clean and flat. I've also gone an extra step and added some radial masks to the light bulbs in this scene. I think it adds a nice glow to the images and it keeps the image still bright and inviting, but in a very intentional way. That's just something I didn't do when I was editing before and creating these older presets. So guys, as you can see, my editing style is evolving and is in constant motion. If you're feeling like you're in a bit of a plateau with how your images are looking, or you're someone who is really craving a bit of change, but you're afraid to do that because it's gonna affect your grid or your style or your portfolio you're building, I would certainly recommend simply leaning into this new evolution. By building a mood board, experimenting with edits, going out and shooting with a different intention, you're gonna be more honest with yourself and the direction that you wanna take with your photography. Try not to let old versions of yourself as a photographer hold you back from moving forward into different looks, styles, and levels you can be in the future. In my experience, it has been a challenging thing to do, evolving my editing style so dramatically, but the fact that my new work reflects where I am now and where I want to go in the future, making the change was essential. And so guys, if you found this video useful, be sure to like and subscribe. A reminder about my newsletter below. And if you're wondering which video to watch, I would certainly recommend last week's video where I show you exactly how I do my photo walks.